Welcome to CISO Interviews, where Affinia hosts cybersecurity executives sharing career advice, actionable insights, and tips so that you can enhance your career and succeed as well.
Tom, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. As we begin, can you say a few words about your current role and what you've been up to?
Sure. So I launched a venture this past year called CyberSherpas. It is a virtual CISO offering. We utilize an AI machine learning platform to provide virtual chief information security officer services or fractional CISO services to small and medium-sized businesses, mostly those ones, Misha, that have some level of compliance or regulatory framework that they have to follow, so that we can help them, number one, avoid the fines, and number two, continue with their contracts.
I understand. And so does it mean it's mostly kind of financial services, healthcare, pharma? Those are usually the ones who face fairly stringent compliance requirements from all the various agencies that are overseeing that.
Yep. So you hit it when you talked about healthcare and finance. Another group that a lot of people don't think about is the defense industrial base. So if you're part of the supply chain for the military, whether you're selling them wings for airplane or wing nuts for doors, they want you to make sure that you're not going to be the compromise and the supply chain failure. So they require the suppliers to be CMMC compliant, and we can help organizations with that, help ensure that they maintain their compliance and their DoD contracts.
I understand. And so that's as of now, but how did you get into cybersecurity? What was the first entry point?
So many people grew up watching Bugs Bunny, like I did. And Bugs Bunny had a famous phrase called, "I took a left turn in Albuquerque." Misha, I truly, in my career, I took a left turn in Albuquerque. Right after 9/11, I was hired back into state government after having left for a year or two to do private sector. And my first day of work, I was supposed to be writing a strategic IT plan on behalf of basically Florida's Department of Labor. And the CIO said, "Hey, we found out yesterday that by statute, we have to have an information security manager."
And you were it.
And those famous words followed, "and you're it." Misha, it was a wonderful opportunity. It was right after 9/11, so there was a hyper focus, if you will, on anti-terrorism. There was a strong focus on homeland security, on protecting critical infrastructure. I was always active in helping with emergency management in my time with state government. I got to work in the Emergency Operations Center the year we had 4 hurricanes and 3 wildfires, and cybersecurity was just a good natural extension of that I'll call it personal or passion desire to help people. And then again, there was a lot of money, a lot of training, a lot of activities that were put into cybersecurity in the early 2000s. And when they said, "Hey, we have a free training on disaster recovery. Hey, we have a free training on business impact analysis," I made sure I raised my hands, took advantage of those opportunities. We had a wonderful leader in the state of Florida, Mike Russo, that made sure that each of his agencies was well protected, and he provided us wonderful opportunities to increase our education and our knowledge. Many of the security managers at state agencies in the early 2000s all came out of their time there with CISSPs, CISAs, a round understanding of what was needed, and a good understanding of how to collaborate and work with each other.
Certainly. I understand. Well, since September 11, things have changed somewhat.
A little.
I think back in the day, when people thought of hackers, immediately there was conjure an image of a teenager in a hoodie in mama's basement who's up to no good. I think nowadays the threats are more formidable, the well-resourced. It's no longer teenagers in hoodies. It's really enterprise scale organizations funded by governments that are less than friendly essentially attacking comparable size organizations. And those threat actors, they have HR departments and vacation policies and incentive plans. So it's just insane how the world is changing.
And help desks. They have help desks too.
I would imagine. So, but I think as a result, I think it's more than anything just a testament of how the role of technology has grown in everyone's life, on a personal level, at a company level, at a government level. And the bigger the role technology plays, the more reliant we are on it performing as expected, and therefore the more rewards attackers would get. And I think as a result, there was a lot more awareness, a lot more awareness from user level to the director of the board, and also interest and curiosity from potential talent. So people are looking to switch from technology to cybersecurity, or maybe even more upstream of that. Someone who's in college trying to figure out what to make their out of their life, looking at the space and getting curious and excited. From your vantage point, what will be your advice? What are the 2-3 things people should focus on to set them up for success in this field?
So, Misha, I actually I mentor a couple of young folks. One of them is about 24, recently graduated from college with a degree in media and marketing, and immediately decided that's not what he wanted to do. Reached out to me and said, I'd like to get into cybersecurity. And we had some really good heart-to-heart and deep conversations. We talked about, I mentioned him, I said, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of organizations out there that will sell you cybersecurity training. And that doesn't mean you get the job. It doesn't mean that I said, so you've got to figure out a good balance between education and experience. What I've seen in the industry as of late is a increased emphasis on apprenticeships. Those opportunities where educational institutions, private industry, and students are creating a three-way triumvirate, if you will, where they're able to put that student into the workplace. And I'll throw some bad numbers out here, Misha. A good salary in some places for a vulnerability scanner is $70,000 a year. Most folks really want a level of experience before they're going to pay those kinds of salaries. So, and with the apprenticeships, they're willing to bring them in at a $40,000 a year salary. And then in 2 years, they get promoted up as they're being trained. They're getting on the job and experiential learning to that point where in 2 years, now they get paid the going wage.
Well, if I'm a student trying to make my way and trying to open a door, I'll say, look, I'll take a pick. I'll work for free for 3 months. I'll do what needs to be done. I'll prove myself, and you're already in. You get to know the people. You find a champion for your cause internally, and you'll get a job. You'll get promoted rather than you're one of thousands out there. So it's sometimes I find that the hustle and really knowing what you want will carry you and put you kind of ahead of the rest of the pack. But it's interesting. It makes a lot of sense, and I think from the organization standpoint, I read numbers somewhere the other day about shortage of tens of thousands, if not more, of cybersecurity professionals. So there's clearly the need is growing faster than the talent is getting up to speed in terms of certifications that you mentioned, or just the experience. So it's clearly this apprenticeship program is something most companies should consider, in my view.
Yeah, they get talent that they can teach organically in terms of their style, their culture, their procedures. And I think it's been proven that those individuals have a higher sense of loyalty and a better opportunity of sticking around with that company longer than you would see with typical IT professionals. You know, the average, and this is a good and a bad, the average shelf life of a CISO is sometimes between 18 and 24 months. You know, what can you really accomplish in that time period unless you're really a superstar? Number one, and then secondarily, it bodes to the volatility, if you will, of that position in that role in organizations as the one that has ultimate responsibility for managing cyber risk and as the chief information security officer. We saw it with SolarWinds recently in the SEC, and we continue to see more scrutiny on that individual and that whoever sits in that seat in that role.
For sure. And Uber before that, and it certainly, it seems the scrutiny on the personal level, not just the scrutiny, but also the exposure on the personal level is such that at certain positions, certain size organizations, CISOs need to consider engaging in personal counsel as well, in addition to directors and officers insurance that the company offers.
Yeah. I want to make sure I'm included in the D&O policy.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a good first question to the inside counsel. Tom, you have a very interesting perspective and a lot of experience in the field from the practitioner side, and now being kind of the provider of the virtual CISO services. So what do you see in the field? What are the 2 or 3 themes, challenges, threat vectors that are maybe emerging, or maybe they're prevalent? What's top of mind for cybersecurity executives that you're dealing with, or organizations that you're dealing with?
So I would say new, but nothing new. And what I mean by that is, I think every year there's a new buzzword. There's a new focus in cybersecurity. Last year, and maybe even into the year before, it was zero trust. This year, it's AI. And what is the impact of AI, not only on the security teams, but on the businesses? And so I'm not sure, Misha, that I've really delved as deep as I need to or want to on what I'll call the cat and mouse game between the attackers and the defenders as it relates to AI. Mm-hmm. I typically give bad examples and stories, and I say, if I build a 10-foot fence, someone will show up with an 11-foot ladder. If I build a 12-foot fence to combat that 11-foot ladder, someone will show up with a shovel. And so my guess is, as it relates to AI and cybersecurity and the red and blue teams, we're going to continue to see one side utilizing technology to gain an advantage, and then the other side catching up, maybe getting even a slight advantage on their side, and a level of continued tete-a-tete and back and forth activities, where I think the real key is going to be is how the business units utilize AI. We've seen horror stories which followed the horror stories of using the cloud, where people said, oh, we'll just go spin something up in the cloud and not really know that it needed to be configured, or there were security controls and deleting of admin accounts and admin passwords, those kinds of silly, stupid things that hurt us in our early cloud adoption. I think we're going to see those same things as people go, hey, this is a cool AI tool. I can use it for this and this and this, without really, Misha, understanding some of the implications of the usage of that tool in the business unit. And then as the security team, we're going to be somewhat responsible for ensuring that they don't vary too far outside of acceptable norms and acceptable practices in using some of these technologies, and most certainly as it relates to protecting our digital assets and our intellectual property, and again, utilization of a new tool in new ways that I think is going to, in many ways, evolutionize the office and the workplace. And then it'll be the security team's job to figure out how to allow that and enable it, but to do so in a secure and safe fashion.
Interesting. And do you see any of anecdotes? You mentioned some horror stories with the cloud. Do you see somewhat, what kind of stories are you seeing, if anything, yet that is AI related?
AI related. I was listening to NPR the other day, National Public Radio, and they talked about a grocery store I think in New Zealand, that had a menu creation AI generated application. And if you followed the instructions, you were actually going to be creating some kind of a mustard or phosgene or poison gas.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and you can go Google that. It's like pack and save AI disaster. I don't know that anybody actually poisoned themselves or their family, but you can see there where the guardrails weren't put in appropriately around that to be able to do that. I've seen equally, um, the AI body of knowledge has opportunities for hallucinations where it makes stuff up. But where I'm more concerned, Misha, is, and you talked earlier about nation states that are supporting the cyber criminals. Where I'm more concerned is them finding ways to utilize that in ways against us.
Meaning like poisoning the data sets that the AI is trained on?
Yes, exactly that. So I'm a big fan of World War II. I think there were many, many bad things that happened across the world, and thank God we pulled ourselves out of it. I believe that when I go back and look at historical back and forth between the Allies and the Axis, I look at things like the Enigma machine, and I look at things like codes and spies and other things that are, maybe James Bondish. And if you had the ability to get into somebody else's body of knowledge and contaminate it, and then get out without them knowing that you created some kind of a contamination, I would think that's the best kind of spy novel you could ever write.
For sure. And with Enigma, I think one of the battles was thrown in, so the Allied forces knew, because they had access to communication through Enigma, that the Germans are going to attack, and they didn't do anything. They exposed themselves to appear unaware, so that to protect the secret that they had access, they cracked the code, the Enigma's code, so they can continue listening in the communications. So that's it was actually very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I think when I look at that scenario, I can see this one being similar, where if I could get into a competitor's body of knowledge. Misha, I saw a cybersecurity professional at a presentation one time about 15 years ago. He worked for a pharmacy company, and he said, think about if a competitor of ours was able to get into our systems and make a change to a formula. We might be conducting clinical trials and giving people medicine that we think is going to save their lives, and it could be killing them. What kind of a PR disaster on top of the deaths do you think our company would be facing if we were doing clinical trials and people were dying? He goes, so part of what we have to do is not only protect our intellectual property, our formulas, but we've got to ensure that nobody has the ability to make changes to those, so that everything has a high level of integrity and purity as it relates to what we do with pharmacy. Again, I thought a very interesting perspective.
For sure. And I mean, I've seen deep fakes where people would take a speech by the CEO and then feed it into the machine, and then use that in the voice of the CEO, and then the mannerisms and the tone, and call the help desk and say, hey, I'm stuck in this Uber car, I'm late for the meeting, I need to access my presentation, give me the bypass codes. So I mean, it's not very far-fetched and not very expensive to execute. It's certainly a scary world out there, and certainly cybersecurity executives will have plenty of job security, for lack of a better term, in that regard. And kind of with this, continue this conversation, if you had a crystal ball and if you could see into the future, what do you think will be some of the either existing themes or emerging themes will be top of mind for CISOs 12 months from now, you think?
So amongst the emerging themes and continuing themes, Misha, I think we'll see is levels of accountability for secure software. I describe what I call the Microsoft deployment strategy, and that is fix it to within 90% of perfect and send it out. And for years and years, we've seen that being a strategy of Microsoft's, maybe 95%. And then they let the users come back and provide feedback and input and figure out what that other 5% is. Otherwise, they would never go to market because they would always be worried about what the latest vulnerability is or what the unsure that their code was up to snuff. So I think we're seeing from CISA and the Biden administration a bigger push and a higher emphasis on, if you're going to put out software, it better do exactly what you say it's going to do. And now that we've introduced AI, what if I bought software 2 years ago, Misha, and it didn't have AI and my contract didn't state anything about AI? And now you've upgraded your software and it includes AI. Maybe I don't want that. Again, I think there's going to be some contractual issues that we see over the next couple of months as it relates to, because everyone now, it's the big hype. AI. I've got AI in everything that I'm doing. Every technology company is spinning AI. Whatever that flavor is, undetermined. But we're going to see the requirements for what we call SBOM, software bill of materials, where more and more you are going to have to identify what's in your software, what it does, what are the interfaces, what are the calculations, how it does that. That's going to be challenging for protecting intellectual property. But I think just like we see ingredients on the side of a can in the grocery store, there's going to be a level of requirement for what are the ingredients in this software that you just sold me, because I need to make sure that it doesn't contain peanuts because I have peanut allergies.
Certainly. And I think to your point, it's actually one of the pillars, talks to one of the pillars of the cybersecurity directive that was put out by the federal government a while back, where one of the pillars is putting the emphasis, putting the pressure on the software providers, because they ship things and then it's onto the corporations to deal with the aftermath and to deal with the fallout if they get breached, if they get there's legal action, there's class action lawsuits by patients of a healthcare provider whose information got breached, and now they're getting phished and they're getting charges on their credit cards by someone who's spinning credit cards accounts in their names. I mean, it's healthcare provider, at least up to that point, could not go to Microsoft and say, "Hey, you sold me something that didn't perform as expected. It's on you, not on me." So it does make a lot of sense. I just hope it's done in a way that's would allow the software providers to continue to operate and stay in business, because I mean it creates a humongous legal challenges for them as well. So it's certainly, the world is in such state that I certainly hope that practitioners and software providers will be able to sort it out and come up with a solution that's moving the business forward, but also in a secure way, rather than only just creating kind of additional layer of compliance and regulatory frameworks that will add additional friction for everyone involved.
Well, and I think one of the other things that pardon me, that we're seeing just evolution, it is related to software and even licensing. It used to be when I bought those diskettes of Microsoft Office or Word, I own those diskettes, I own that software. Now, I think it was several years ago, there was a hurricane in Miami, and I didn't know this, but apparently the software from Tesla that sits there that can determine how much battery life is chargeable. And if you buy the basic Tesla battery, it will let you drive for 3 hours. If you buy the Tesla Plus battery, it will let you drive for 5 hours. So what Tesla did was, when everyone was trying to evacuate the hurricane in Miami, they put out an update that allowed everyone that had the basic package to charge their car 5 hours instead of 3 hours to get further away from the danger. At a certain point, they put that update, they reversed that update, and it went back to 3 hours. So the question in my mind, Misha, is I thought I bought something, but now somebody else has control of how far it will go, and what, how does that match up with what we consider to be property laws here in the United States? Who owns it?
It's before people get Neuralink uplink in their brain so they can get booted up from a third-party server. So
right.
When that comes online, it will be even more interesting conversation of who controls what and who get access to what. So imagine the level of scrutiny and the level of exposure when this comes online.
Right. You may have gone a couple of years further in your predictions than I was. I was looking at next spring or even next summer. What Certainly. I thought.
Well, Neuralink is actually, I think it's they get approval from FDA to treat patients. So it certainly does. It is coming online as a fairly expedited fashion, and it's something they've been working on for a while. And certainly, obviously, the immediate applications are more kind of healthcare and really kind of advanced people who have serious issues. It will be life-changing for them.
Right.
Not everyone obviously will opt in to get an uplink like that. Tom, this was a very interesting conversation. I really appreciate your insights and coming on. Where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Probably the best place to find me. I try and maintain some level of a professional presence and sharing of what I think my latest thoughts or my latest discoveries are. I am at CyberSherpas.io as we continue to work and deliver our virtual CISO services. And then lastly, Misha, what I talked about with our vCISO service is what I call my professional life. In my passion life, I help manage the South Carolina Cybersecurity Association and Foundation. We do a variety of activities and trainings and events across the state. And we have our annual conference set for February 21st and 22nd. Looking forward to another successful delivery of a 2-day event related to cybersecurity, to government, industry, academia, and glad to have any members of the Affinia community consider either joining us as a presenter, an attendee, or a sponsor.
Absolutely. So send us a link, and we'll be happy to feature it in our weekly email newsletter on Substack. So send us the details.
I look forward to getting that. Even if I don't read it immediately, it may be the end of the weekend or the following 2 or 3 days.
Sure.
But I look forward to reading that message and that update. So thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks, Tom.
No, you have a great day. Take care.